I guess firstly, I just wanted to thank everyone who's come along to this session. Well, there's a lot of names that I hadn't heard from before, so I'm hoping that means we've got a whole lot of new participants today and participants that probably haven't heard this presentation before. So even though I might feel like I'm repeating myself, the good news is you may have only heard it for the first time today. So that's great. So my name's Aaron Glossop. I'm the Stakeholder Engagement Advisor for the SA Portable Long Service Leave Scheme. And I just wanted to also introduce Mandy Magan, who's our Operations Manager, who is going to just monitor all the questions that come through on the chat line as I'm presenting the slides. And more than likely, I'll rely on her at the end of the slides for her huge knowledge around the scheme and answer all those questions as well. Firstly, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. Today I'm on Kaurna land, and I pay my respects to the Kaurna people, and also pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people with us today. Today, this session is all about helping you confidently complete and submit your quarterly return for the Portable Long Service Leave Scheme. I don't expect, and the past iterations of this webinar, we haven't actually taken up the whole hour of the session, which does allow us to get stuck into some of your questions once we get to the end of the slides. But most likely, it'll be able to give some of your time back to your day. We're going to walk you through each step of the process today. We'll explain what information you'll need to have ready, and we'll highlight some of the common questions that we've been seeing. By the end of the session, I hope you'll know exactly how to complete your quarterly return. For the most of you, I'm hoping you know that the scheme started officially on the 1st of October. So we are currently, I'd say, about 7 weeks in. So by now, you should have registered your organisation, or your organisation that you work for should have registered. If that's still on the to-do list, can I ask you to prioritise that as soon as you can? It's a quick 5-minute task undertaken through the employer portal, which can be found on our website. We are now in our first reporting quarter, which runs from the 1st of October through to the 31st of December. And during this time, you will need to register your eligible workers. We would recommend you have that wrapped up by the end, wrapped up by the end of December, so you're ready for your first return. Then the key date to remember from then is the 21st of January 2026, and that's when your first quarterly return is due and the levy payment is due. Once your organisation is set up and it's registered, and they've registered the eligible workers and uploaded them, the main ongoing task for the employer is to complete a quarterly return. And these returns are pretty straightforward. They're generated automatically in the employer portal and are due on the 21st day after the end of each quarter. So for example, the January to March return, you can see on the top of your the table in your screen right now, will be due on the 21st of April. And the same pattern continues throughout the year. Each 21st day of the month following the end of that quarter. So when you submit your return, the system will automatically generate an invoice for the levy, and that invoice is due on the same day as the return is due, so you can complete both in one go. Once the workers are registered, the employer's ongoing task is to complete that quarterly return. Towards the end of each quarter, they'll receive an email. So the people who are the registered contact points with the organisation will receive an email advising the return is available for them to complete. So what they'll do is they'll log on to the employer portal and report their workers' weeks worked and how much they were paid for that period. And the system will guide them through it all. It's designed to be quick and become easily familiar. When the return is submitted, the system will automatically generate that invoice for the levy, and the payment is due on that 21st day after that quarter is ended. As mentioned earlier, for the first period, the return and levy is due on the 21st of January next year. So I'm going to show you a quick video of it's a step through of the quarterly returns. It does have a voiceover on it that'll step through particularly parts of it. And once it's finished, we'll just go through it a little bit more. So if you don't catch all the information in the little videos in the step-by-step process, a recording of this webinar will be uploaded to our website so you can watch it again. I just wanted to quickly say what's not shown in this video is workers who have had one or more weeks in the period where they did not do any work. We'll need to get some additional information if that's the case. Things like copies of their timesheets for the period so we can identify when they did and didn't work. Ideally, in that spreadsheet, you can provide it for just the workers who didn't work at least one shift per week, or you can provide it for all of your workers if it's easier. We need this data essentially for making sure workers are paid the right rate of pay when they claim their long service leave. So I'll start the video and I'll come back to you as soon as it's finished. Oh, sorry, my bad.
I don't think any of us are hearing any audio with this presentation at the moment.
Okay, I can hear it. So I'm assuming that it's working from my end. I would expect that, Mandy, can you hear it from your end? You can't either? Okay, well, I'll have to have a look at that, so my bad. Do you want me to start from the start and I can walk your way through it myself? Yep, okay, let's do that.
Yes, please.
All right, my bad. All right. Technical glitches on a Tuesday. Here we go.
Probably, Aaron, you might have to reshare your screen. When you are sharing your screen, you have to tick the share audio button.
That's okay. Thank you for that. I will have a look at doing that the next time around, but I'll just walk you through it this time around. So bear with me. Let's go. So you can log into your employer portal, and that dashboard will show any pending returns. The returns can also be accessed through the drop-down box at the top. You would open the relevant return on your dashboard. And once you open it, all active workers should be pre-populated after you've registered them. And you'll enter all weeks worked and remuneration for each worker. The levy will automatically calculate the more data you put in. If you need to add other workers, you'll click on the Add New Worker section. And again, add the weeks worked and the remuneration to their line item. If you need to add additional workers, you can go through the Add Additional Worker drop box and find them in the selected or in the section that you would have those workers listed. If any worker hasn't worked during that quarter and weeks worked is 0, you would need to enter a discrepancy reason. In this example, you will see that that person did not work because they resigned on the 16th of October. So it's just simply putting some information on their line item to confirm. You can also add new workers in. You would select Add New Worker, and then as simply as you've done with your registering your workers, you would complete the new worker details and submit. And then again, they'll pop up on the table and you'll enter the weeks worked and how much you paid them in that quarter. Each time you add a new line item, the levy will adjust based on the additional information you enter. You can bulk upload the information as well instead of doing it individually. If you go down through to that section and go download template, and then in your download section on your computer, you'll open the spreadsheet. And then here you will just be entering the same detail. You'll be entering you'll be adding in the weeks worked and the remuneration, and there are some instructions on the tab down the bottom for each column to give you some guidance as to what's required. There's also some instructions to adding new workers at this point in time as part of the bulk upload, which would mean that you would manually enter those weeks worked and remuneration for those workers that are pre-populated. And again, if there's any changes or discrepancies in their weeks worked, you would enter that data here as well. And then if you needed to add new workers who may have started that you haven't uploaded as yet, you would slide across the spreadsheet. Once you've completed this section, you'd slide across the spreadsheet and you'll find some columns that there's the instructions again. So you would slide across the spreadsheet to find the part where first name and ongoing information is required about those new workers. So again, normally you would just enter the details of the particular workers. If you've got employee numbers in-house, this might be a good opportunity for you to put that information in so you can, when you're searching for an employee, you can search it with your own employee number and then try and enter as much detail here as possible. Our preferred option is to correspond with the worker is via a personal email address. And that is because for any reason that they leave your organization and move to another one, their personal email address should remain the same and we can continue to communicate with them. Again, you would just continue to upload as much information as you can, and then you would again enter weeks worked and remuneration for that person. And then you would save that file, and then you can upload it using that upload template button, and that'll automatically pre-populate those workers onto the worker details button, as you can see there. and then the levy will adjust again accordingly to the information you provided. Once that's been done, as I said earlier, an invoice will be emailed to the primary contacts within your organisation, and there are some different payment options available on the invoice for the levy to be paid. Invoices can also be found on the portal if you select the invoices button at the drop-down box, just in case you need to see where or what is due on that invoice if you haven't received the email or if it's unable to find it. Essentially, that's it when it comes to the quarterly return. It's obviously a little bit more information there that you'll need to do than what we could show, but it gives you a bit of a step-by-step process that if you can go back over at some point when you need to re-watch it, the benefit of watching the video is you can stop and pause and go back to a section of the video that you might be confused about or troubled about and have another look. The other thing is that if you are stuck when this process is in train, you can always give us a call and have a chat to us about it as well. Essentially, it shouldn't be too difficult, especially if you have your eligible workers already pre-populated. If you go down the path of a upload or a download of the actual bulk upload option, the spreadsheet will pre-populate with all the eligible workers that you have registered. So it should be as simple as entering the weeks worked and how much you paid them in that quarter for each of those workers. And as you saw in that video, if you have any workers that you haven't registered, for whatever reason, they may have started halfway through the quarter, or for whatever reason, you can add them at that time as well. I just want to touch quickly on ordinary weekly pay, or OWP for those in the industry, for service accrued after the scheme started, because it's important everyone has the same understanding. OWP is simply the amount used to work out what a worker gets paid when they take long service leave. It's not based on their current rate alone. It's calculated as an average of what they've earned each week over the past 3 years. And that average covers all of their service. So if a worker has been employed by several organisations in that time, their OWP reflects earnings across all employers and all return periods recorded in that scheme. If we look at remuneration, because it's directly linked to both the levy and the ordinary weekly pay, remuneration is basically the gross payments made to a worker for their work, and that includes ordinary wages, regular allowances, and other standard payments. It does not include one-off bonuses or reimbursements, just the payments that reflect their regular work. And this is what we use to calculate both the levy you pay or the employer pays and the worker's average weekly pay for the long service leave. Keeping this distinction clear helps avoid errors in reporting and ensures everyone's records are accurate. The regulations, which were released in July earlier this year, specifically talk about OWP and remuneration and what's included and what's excluded. So when calculating the levy, there are some clear rules on what's included and what's excluded from an employee's ordinary pay. So on the screen right now, you can see what is included. These are the full list of inclusions that are captured as part of that remuneration amount. And that down the bottom right-hand side dot point, there is that catch-all there that includes anything that is not listed as an exclusion. And if we move on to the excluded list, this is what is not included as part of the remuneration for the levy calculation. These payments do not count towards that 2.2% levy. Both of these lists, the included and excluded list, can be found on our website. They also, if you if you're into it and you want to know, you can actually search for the legislation and the regulations online, and if you'd like to have a read through them, you can see them there as well. When it comes to claiming long service leave, we've had a few questions about how the process works and who's eligible for leave and at what particular time. So essentially, workers who have completed at least 120 months of service can either take time off or request a cash payment instead. And leave must be claimed in whole days with a minimum of 1 week per claim. Workers will submit their application through the worker portal. However, their leave won't be approved or paid until their employer approves the time off. The standard rule that we go with is that workers should apply 2 months in advance for their leave, but if the worker can agree with the employer to a shorter notice period, we can look at that as well. Payments are generally made the week before the leave starts, so the worker has access to the pay on time. And if a worker leaves the community services sector after at least 84 months of service, they can receive a pro rata payment for the long service leave they've accrued. If we take a quick look at transitional provisions, this is about service a worker has accrued before the scheme started on the 1st of October. Any continuous service with an employer before the date carries over into the scheme. That means it counts towards portable long service leave entitlements. However, if a worker leaves before reaching 7 years with that employer, the service they had before the 1st of October 2025, the pre-scheme service is lost. And that's standard. So if someone was working for an organisation and they left before their 7 years, even under the Long Service Leave Act, they would lose their any entitlement or anything that they've accrued. On the other hand, if a worker stays for 7 or more years, the employer becomes liable for a payment for the long service leave accrued before the scheme started. And the rate of pay for service accrued before the scheme is calculated under the Long Service Leave Act is reflected on the old rules, not the scheme's current average weekly pay calculation. I just want to finally talk about compliance. Our approach is very simple. We're here to provide support and guidance and not to issue penalties. Our goal is to simply help everyone understand what the scheme's all about. We're here to help employers with their obligations under the scheme and make it as easy for them to meet their obligations. If any issues come up, we work collaboratively with employers to resolve them. Sorry, I couldn't get that one out. One practical thing employers can do to make life easier is to keep clear records and documentation of registrations, returns, and payroll calculations. That helps employers and it helps us if questions arise, and it keeps everything as straightforward for everyone. We know, and I've said this quite a lot lately, we know a lot of change like this can feel like a lot to take in, so we have plenty of support available every step of the way. First, there are information sheets and toolkits and guides on our website, and they cover everything you need to know about each stage of the portable long service leave journey. And that also includes information on these returns and levy payments. And we continue to work on additional resources around information sheets, and there'll be more to come soon. We also have obviously these webinars, and we record all of our webinars and upload them onto our website. We do it as timely as we can. They're available obviously for you to rewatch. Like I said earlier, you can pause, rewind, and watch at your own pace and try and understand our instructions. For quick answers, We have a dedicated FAQs page for workers. We have a dedicated FAQs page for employers. And in fact, we have FAQs for self-employed contractors and working directors. If there's any more help that anyone needs, our customer service officers are only a phone call away, or you can email them if that's your preference. They will guide you through any part of the process or answer specific questions. The key message, I guess, is you're not on your own. There are multiple ways to get support whenever you need it. That pretty much brings me to the end of the slides itself, and I have done that in about the same time as I've done that in most other sessions. I just wanted to say we'll get to all your questions at the moment that I know Mandy looks like she's busily answering anyways. But I just want to highlight that it's really important for you to stay in touch with, I guess, the scheme itself, and we've got a number of ways you can do that. You can grab your phone and take a photo or a screenshot of the QR code on your screen now, which will take you to our website. You can visit our website on your laptop or your computer at work, and using that website address there. You can call us on those two numbers. They will get you through to our customer service officers, and it's at that point you can ask your questions, and you can provide. We'll provide as many answers as we can. We do have an email address, and which is not listed there. If you feel like you would prefer to email us your questions, you can send us an email at admin@saplsl-community.org.au. And one thing I would suggest to everyone is, because we use these considerably and to make people aware of changes or upcoming information or sessions like this, is to follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook. We have a steady flow of information and direction and guidance and awareness raising on those two platforms. And the more people we have follow, the more people we can share information with, and we can raise the awareness even more quickly. If anyone's got any questions, Mandy, I'll just come over to you. I guess you've been answering all the questions as I've been going. Is there anything in particular that you want to talk about or answer anything that's, yep.
Not so much, but maybe you could do does anyone want to ask a question out loud instead of typing it thing?
Well, Christine just jumped up her hand really quick. That's excellent. So go ahead, Christine. We can't hear you yet, Christine. So if you want to ask a question, take yourself off mute.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm Christine. I'm the payroll compliance manager for Hayes Recruitment in Sydney.
Hello.
Hi. This is just another one to add to every other state I pay now. And I agree with this other person just said something. Yeah, every state is paid differently. But the only clarification I need is, so if they just work one day in the week, and the minimum, because I asked this question in the chat, is minimum shift is 2 hours. So that equates to 1 week worked. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
Oh,
that's exactly how the legislation has been written. Yes, and exactly right.
Okay. All right. That's wow. So minimum 2 hours equates to 1 week. Okay.
And that's why
all I need to know.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we get everyone to report on the week's worked. It doesn't matter how much they've worked in that week. It's just if it's 2 hours, it's 1 week worked. If it's 30 hours, it's 1 week worked.
Wow. Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you, Christine. Who wants to chuck the hand up now and ask a question?
There is one in the chat that I'll talk about, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So there's the last comment there says we accrue long service leave in hours, not weeks, which is how a lot of payroll systems calculate long service leave. Under the Long Service Leave Act 1987, which is the one that normally employers will cover their workers under, long service leave is still accrued in weeks. So it's 1.3 weeks for each full calendar year completed is how much long service leave a person should be getting. I do understand payroll systems don't do it like that, but when you report to us, we need you to calculate that out in weeks, because that's also how our legislation works. So the way you can do that is to look at your person's start date and then calculate how many 12-month periods there would be. If they have had weeks of leave without pay during that time that they've worked for you, you do need to sort of change their entitlement anniversary date accordingly. But you should be able to work out, based on the amount of full years completed times 1.3, how many weeks of leave there would be available for long service leave purposes. And then there's another question about how payroll systems work. Unfortunately, we can't provide you advice on how your payroll systems work. Everyone has a different one. They're all set up differently, and we couldn't possibly give you all the right answers. It's best to talk to the people who manage your payroll software for you to get that advice. If it's Xero or MyUp, if enough of you ask the questions, they'll be able to publish those on the website in their FAQ. If you have a different provider, then yeah, just ask them directly and they'll be able to help you out with that.
But it's important to note, as of the 1st of October, instead of accruing internally for long service leave, they'll pay the levy, which will cover their eligible workers' long service leave moving forward.
Mm-hmm. But you will still need to maintain the long service leave accrued up to the 30th of September. You'll need those records still.
Yeah. I just wanted to go back to that question, and not necessarily to answer the question as it was asked, but I know someone mentioned that each state around Australia seems to have a different set of rules and legislation for long service leave for the community service sector, and that's something that we acknowledge, and it's something that unfortunately, as a state-based South Australian scheme, we can't control. But in the legislation, there was a provision noted that that this scheme could talk to other schemes around Australia once an agreement has been made with those other states for those schemes to be recognised interstate. So whilst we don't necessarily have that recognition at this point in time, I guess our expectation is at some point that will occur. It's occurred in the construction industry. Our construction industry scheme has been around for 40, 50 years. And I know that other states' construction schemes have an agreement with ours in particular that allows workers to move in between states and still be recognised. So I think the answer is it'll happen at some point. We just don't know when it'll happen, and there are provisions that have been put in place for it to occur.
That also, though, won't actually help employers manage their entire obligations anymore. It just means that workers' entitlements will be recognised across Australia in the community services sector rather than just in South Australia or in the individual states that they happen to be working in.
Yeah, correct.
There was another question about what's the difference between months of service and the weeks you report in the quarterly return. So the way that workers accrue their long service leave is through the time they spend in the community services sector, and that is measured in months. So 12 months means you spent 1 year of time in the community services sector. 10 years is 120 months. That's when we know that the workers are entitled to 13 weeks of long service leave. The weeks that you report on the quarterly return are supposed to align with your payroll reports. I know some people are doing it fortnightly, some people do it weekly, but the idea is that you're aligning that as much as you can with your payroll report so we can find out what the worker's weekly rate of pay is. We need that information so that when we pay the worker, we can calculate what their normal weekly rate of pay is across all the jobs they have in the sector. And that's why we have to collect that information.
Excellent. Thanking you. Thanks, Mandy. I'm just scrolling back over some of the questions that have come through the chat. So what happens if an employer has already been paid for long service leave in this first quarter, Mandy?
So if you have already paid a worker for long service leave in the quarter, effectively what you need to do is just deduct that from the calculations you did on the 30th of September. So the way the legislation is written is that the service that was accrued with the workers that you're employing before the scheme started needs to carry over into the scheme. And we're going to collect all of that information from you through a one-off returns process in February. That returns process will capture information about the workers' start dates, about the amount of service they've accrued in months, about the long service leave entitlements they've accrued in weeks, what they've taken, what's left over, and any liabilities that you hold. So before we send out that return, we'll definitely have lots of information, and we'll host another webinar on how to fill that one out. But the purpose of that is to get all the information into the scheme so that the workers can then claim directly from us and you won't be paying the workers anymore. If you have done that in the first quarter, that's what I mean. You just need to deduct it from those totals that you're going to report on the 30th in February, so that we've got all the information about what leave entitlements are still remaining on the workers' account and what have been claimed. Ideally, workers will claim through portable long service leave now. If they need to take long service leave, we have all of our systems set up to be able to process claims at the moment. So you just need to fill in the claim form that's on our website. Both the worker will fill it out and the employer will fill it out. That form has all the information that we need to be able to process the claim. And we say to allow 3 weeks for processing. If you do, for some reason, need to pay the worker directly for long service leave in the first quarter, you can only pay them for long service leave that they built up and they accrued up to the 30th of September. So employers cannot pay workers directly for any long service leave that's accrued after the 1st of October this year. Those have to be claimed through portable long service leave.
Okay, thank you.
We've
You
got
going
some
through
more
the
questions.
Yep.
I'm like, wow, all the questions have popped up while I'm talking.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I definitely can't answer those while I'm talking. That's way too much. Is the quarterly return?
Yeah, I was about to ask that question. Yeah, you're okay. I was going to ask that question. Is a quarterly return based on payment date or record date? Does pay period ends on the 31st of October with payment being made on the 3rd of November? Does that one make any sense
it's
to you?
going to be easier for you if you base it on payment date, because that's how you're going to know when to report them. But it probably doesn't matter as long as you stay consistent with it, because the idea is that you report up to the end of a fortnight or week or whatever, and then you start reporting from the start of the next one. So as long as you're being consistent with how you're managing it, all of the entitlements will get captured.
Okay, thanks. We've got Jeanette putting her hand up. Hey, Jeanette, how are you?
Afternoon. Sorry, I was a bit of a late entry.
You're okay.
Just a question with regards to, so if South Australian portable long service leave scheme is going to take over the payment responsibility to the employee, then what happens to all the employees' deductions that they've currently got in place? Like, we have salary packaging arrangements. How do employees maximise the benefit for that?
So the only way that we can manage that is through the provisions we have for salary sacrifice. And basically the way that works is that the worker or the employer or both or whatever nominates the amount to be deducted from the worker's payment and paid to the employer for managing those salary sacrifice obligations. So what we do is go, okay, this is the total amount that the worker will be paid per week or fortnight or full payment. This is how much salary sacrifice amount comes out. We pay that to the employer. We pay the rest of the payment to the worker. We'll run the tax on it after we've done the salary sacrifice provisions, and then it's up to the employer to pass on those salary sacrifice arrangements, however it is that you manage them. Our legislation doesn't allow for anything else apart from that. It's quite simplistic, and that is the process. So we don't have any flexibility on how to manage that.
And what about superannuation for the employee and deductions for superannuation?
So we don't pay superannuation for workers on long service leave, but if a worker wanted to have some of their payment deducted and under the salary sacrifice provisions paid to the employer so that the employer could pay it into their super, you could do that. If the worker just wanted to receive the whole payment, they could do that, but it would be taxed. So again, the legislation only allows us to pay a portion of the worker's payment to the employer, and that's all of the salary sacrifice provisions that are available.
So are you saying that we do not pay the employee at all if they take long service leave, and we have to somehow manage all those deductions outside of the payroll
system, including what the decision is around superannuation? Because currently all other states, you know, we pay the employee for the long service leave and they attract superannuation because we're paying the employee. So this is going to be a big hit to the employee under the circumstances. So We're talking about legislation. Currently, we pay the employee their long service leave and we pay superannuation on top of that.
Yeah, Jeanette, you're right. But all schemes around Australia don't pay super directly on those payments. So there's not one scheme that does that. So you're right. The employer is that space to be able to do that.
Yeah, but the other schemes, can I just jump in there? The other schemes allow us as a payroll to pay the employee, and then we request, we pay the employee directly, and then we get a reimbursement. We request a reimbursement from the authority for the leave. So everything happens as seamless for the employee as far as all their entitlements go, but then we just manage that reimbursement. But you're saying that now we have to stop and we can't pay the employee, and actually is more work on the employer's behalf as well as payroll, and it's more messy for us to try and manage all this stuff in the background. I don't understand how we can do this.
We absolutely understand that, and it is different to the other states. The other states do have the flexibility where the employers can pay the workers directly if that's what everyone decides to do, and then the scheme will refund the employers. Our legislation doesn't have those provisions. Our legislation only has the provisions where we pay the employees. The only different provisions allowing is where the worker and the employer can agree to extinguish the liability for long service leave held up to the 30th of September, and that's it. So we hear you, but we can't do anything about it. We have to follow what the legislation says, and that's what it says.
So that's
I'm sort of a bit confused about how we manage this, and is there some really clear instructions? So I'd have to take this to our legal department to actually review this whole process from, employee relations to, are we compliant with the ATO, all sorts of stuff. I don't actually quite understand how we can be compliant.
Our legislation doesn't give us any information on that either.
Yeah, that's my question as well. Will this
can I just stop everyone there? Can I have one question at a time, please? Just instead of talking over everyone, it's just a lot easier if we can just have one question at a time.
Yeah, hands up. Thanks.
So I think, Maria, we hear what you're saying. We are really bound by what the legislation tells us and what we can and can't do. There's not much we can do about it. We didn't write the legislation. We are here to deliver on what the legislation says. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And we can't do anything about it. So in your space, yeah, I would suggest you absolutely go and get your own advice on that and talk to your teams about what that means for you. And I guess if you take away anything, it is that we are here to help you, and we are here to try and make sure that, we can do whatever it is that we can to help you with. There are a lot of things that we are bound to in a black and white society, unfortunately.
It would be good, because I might have missed this at the beginning of the session. Yeah. Do you have like a clear guideline on all of this now in relation to how we make the payments and how we manage
how about we take it offline, Maria, and we can have a chat maybe this afternoon or later in the week. And if you wanted to just send us an email or give me a call, my number is available everywhere pretty much, so we can have a chat offline. I think there are some simple instructions that we can share with you, and I'm pretty sure that they're on our website. For the life of me, I can't remember exactly where right now. But I'm pretty sure we'll be able to help you out. I'm just going to go to Jeanette. Did you have a follow-up, or is it a completely new one?
Probably just more around, a bit of a call out around superannuation, and I guess from other organisations, because we're a nationwide organisation. So, we've got employees that potentially are crossing over and doing work in Victoria as well as South Australia. And so, 1 minute if they're working half their time in.
I think we've lost her. Okay, if she comes back online, we'll get the rest of it. I'm not sure what's happened there. So let's just move on quickly, and we'll talk about, there's not much more we can talk about from the super side of things, unfortunately. It's just the way the legislation is written and the instructions and deliveries that we have to make. So let me just move on to Warren. You've got your hand up.
Thank you very much, Aaron. My question just picks up on a comment you made, and there's been a bit of this in relation to returns and employees applying for leave, and a sort of an answer that the contact will be emailed. But if you've got a very large organisation, ours, we've got a number of contacts registered, depending on whether they're finance people or they're payroll people who are needing to manage the leave access side. Is if an email goes out, are all the contacts going to be receiving the same email? Like, you know, your quarterly return is now due, or can we target or nuance that communication by saying this person's responsible for this, use their email address?
You absolutely can. So we're actually doing a new release of our system in the upcoming weeks. So we're sort of building our system as we go. Obviously, we haven't a lot of time to put the scheme together. So we've got some new functionality coming in the next few weeks. And part of that functionality involves assigning a role to the contacts. So there's a finance user and a returns and a claims and a general. And so you'll be able to assign which kind of information you want to go to each contact. And that way, if you want one person to be doing all of the claims approvals, then you'll tick them as the claims person and all the claims approvals will go to them. So yes, that functionality will be available. It's not right now because we're still rolling out that version of the system.
Okay, awesome. Look forward to that.
I was going to say, just let me add in as well, Warren, just so everyone's aware that our team here, our customer service team, they do not have the ability to talk to anyone within your organisation that is not a point of contact. So when the person registers the organisation, once that's all been confirmed and is ready to go, that single point of contact can then therefore go and add additional contact points. And when that new functionality comes in that Mandy talks about, you can assign different roles. But if there's someone that talks to us or wants to reach out to us that is not a registered point of contact, unfortunately, from a privacy perspective, we cannot talk to them until they are registered. So I think that's a really important thing to note, and we're not doing it because we don't want to talk to you. It's just from a privacy perspective. We just need to make sure that that's in place. Okay, Jeanette, I'm sorry, you went and stalled on us. Unfortunately, I think your system or some of our systems broke on the moment. So if you want to continue what you were trying to say.
Okay, we'll follow it up another time. I'm happy to.
Okay. You want to reach out and have a chat offline?
Sure.
Brilliant. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Cool. I know, Cashel, you've been very patient. Thank you with your hand up.
Just I was wanted to check whether like authority will make the payment to employee. Will they report according to the single touch payroll guidelines to ATO as well?
Yes, we do.
And including the salary sacrifice payment as well?
Nope, the salary sacrifice all goes through the employer. So we pay the money to the employer will do all of the normal things they would do with that money.
So we have to again process that via payroll.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for that. Just going back to the chat, Amanda just said, what if the business is shut down? And I'm going to assume you mean by that that they no longer exist or they've disappeared off the face of the earth for some reason. If that's the case, because the scheme pays the employee, the worker, for the long service leave, that is that will take place, and then it's on behalf of, or I guess the conversation between the scheme and then the employer will need to occur to try and reimburse those funds. If that's the question you're asking, hopefully that answers it.
Either way, the worker's not going to miss out. So
Correct.
The worker is able to claim through portable long service leave once the service is all captured on their account, and where we get the money from to pay that is an us problem and not the worker's problem.
So
Maria?
Just a quick question.
Oh, yes, Maria.
Yeah, just wondering, if we did pay the employee long service leave, at any point in time, if we were directed we have to pay that person's salary, can we get a reimbursement from the authority?
The only time any reimbursement is available is if the worker was registered with portable long service leave in an eligible role and then changed into a role that's not eligible anymore with the same employer and reached an entitlement under the Long Service Leave Act. So that's the only time that we will reimburse employers for service accrued under portable long service leave.
Thanks, Mandy.
If the worker is actively registered with portable long service leave and accruing portable long service leave, they need to claim through portable long service leave. They cannot claim through the employer and the employer get a reimbursement. It's not an option in our legislation to do that.
Okay.
I'm just Jill's just asked a question around eligibility. So we've got a ton of information on our website about who's eligible and who's not. So I'll just chuck in the chat quickly the link to that so you can have a look at that. Bear with me. Is there anything else on there, Mandy, that we...
Yeah, but Warren's got his hand up if you want to do that.
Yep, just hang on. I'm just going to respond to this one.
Hi, Warren.
So, go, Warren.
Just a supplemental on the reimbursement. If an employee ends up with an entitlement under the, let's call it the State Act, at a point in time in the future, what is the interaction between that and the portable scheme, just noting that the State Act will provide them with a better benefit than the scheme is going to? So if an employee ends up with their 7 years service with us in another 2 years' time, us paying them pursuant to the State Act will result in them getting more money than the portable scheme. I just want to make sure we don't end up where we haven't met our obligations under the State Act because we relied on the scheme, because a smaller sum of money is going to be paid by the scheme than is actually going to be received if we pay under the State Act.
If the worker is registered with portable long service leave and accruing long service leave under the Portable Long Service Leave Act 2024, then they have to claim through us. It's not an option for the employer to pay them under the Long Service Leave Act, regardless of how long they've been with that employer. They can only be covered under one legislation at a time, and if they're eligible for the portable one, they're not covered under the Long Service Leave Act, and they are required to claim through the Portable Long Service Leave Act.
Okay, thank you.
So there is things around about moving in and out of the scheme. So if a worker moves into a role that's not eligible under the Portable Long Service Leave scheme, they can obviously then fall back into the State Act, Warren, as you talked about. So essentially, depending on what role they're in around eligibility, they could be accruing one or the other at different times. And then the two schemes will talk to each other around any payments that are required at any point in time moving forward.
Okay, that's appreciated, Aaron, because there has been an internal debate about whether we need to continue to be tracking long service leave accrual under the Act once the scheme starts, and the answer appears to be that would be advisable. In case they move back out.
Yeah, it can help if they move back out, but you can usually calculate using the service that you, like the information that you already have. You can sort of back calculate based on their start date and their leave without pay to work out what their entitlement is retrospectively. There's a question about on termination long service leave must be paid on day of termination. So with portable long service leave, termination payments are made on termination from the sector, not on termination from an employer. If a person is continuing on in the sector, they're not automatically entitled to a payment on termination with their employer, because the idea is that you're building your entitlements to the sector and not to the company that you happen to just leave. If a worker wants to claim termination payment because they are leaving the sector and they're not intending to return to the sector within the next 12 months, then they need to do so through the scheme. As with all of our long service leave payments, we say to allow 3 weeks for processing. With a termination payment, we can't process that until after the person has had their last day of work in the sector. So that also means if they have multiple employers in the sector, they would need to leave all of those employers to be eligible for a termination payment. If they're still continuing to work in the sector, they're not eligible for a termination payment.
Yeah. Christine, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I do. I've read and reread the Who Do I Cover, and it's a bit of a nightmare because my issue is with the people that I've reported and registered is like they're supporting the support staff.
Yep.
So like they're like the admin staff, like so, and then it does say that, you know, if they do more than half of their duties. Now, we don't know that. Like, I pay over 15,000 people a week, our organisation. Like, at the moment, I've got a small list of 12, but we're a temp agency. Like, that could grow by the time I do my first quarterly return. So how do I know? Like, that is the biggest thing. Like, do I just register them And then if you have a query, you'll come to me, because you do have to list what they do, like other administration duties. And that's what I've listed them as for that reason, because I don't know. And it's hard. Like HR is due, is entitled. So I just find it, I find that the hardest.
Yeah,
Like-
no, and we hear you, and that's not uncommon to hear those types of I guess things that people have to decide on. When it comes to eligibility, obviously the two streams are in place where it covers the frontline workers who are actually out there delivering the service for the organisation, and they're covered by the right award. So we know that that's a pretty simple
Correct.
eligibility process. The provision of supporting the community services can be a little bit tricky in the sense that it all depends on, I guess, those admin staff, those HR people, and what their role is and how much of their time they are supporting those other people to deliver those services. So in the case of an organisation that is multidisciplinary, so they provide services to eligible roles and provide services to roles that aren't eligible, it's determining how much of their time that they're working on both sides. So it's a simple percentage 50-50 rule. If they're in payroll and they're providing if you've got staff that work 60%, if you've got 60% of your staff that work in eligible roles and 40% that don't, a simple math equation could be that a payroll pays all of them. So essentially they're supporting 60% of your staff who are in eligible roles, and therefore they also would be eligible because it's that 50-50 rule. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense.
But acknowledging it can be a little bit hard for people
to.
Yeah. But look, whilst we can't determine who's eligible for you, we can definitely help you and talk you through things exactly like that and how they work, and maybe help you along the way. So feel free to reach out to the team if you have any more questions in that space.
No worries. Thank you.
You're welcome. How are we going, Mandy?
Yeah, good. I think it's almost time to wrap up. Most of the information or questions coming through about claims, so we might need to do another claims webinar. Or we can also recommend that people watch the claims webinar that we held last week.
Yeah, it's online.
Yeah, it's available on our website, so if you want to watch that or download the slides that I'm pretty sure are on there too.
I think that's a really good. Yeah, they are. It's a really good starting point. So people can rewatch the claims webinar from last Thursday. The slides are on there as well. And then I guess if they have any questions after watching that and looking at the slides, they can come to us and ask any specific question, because what we find is people ask really specific questions to their organisation, which is absolutely fine, and that's what normally would happen. And we can take those questions offline and work with you directly about them instead of having to put everyone else through those examples. One question I just want to raise is quickly about tax file numbers for employees and keeping them on our system and when we need them. Mandy, we don't ask for them until the payment has been, or a leave request has been made and a payment is being made. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the tax file numbers are collected on the claim forms, and they're collected each time we do a claim just to make sure they're the right tax file numbers. They are stored on the accounts, but they're hidden away where no one can see them because we're not legally allowed to have them available for anyone to view. So, but we don't collect them as part of the registration process. It's only done upon claim.
Yeah. All right. I can't see anyone else's hand up, and I just wanted to reiterate the fact that if you do have any questions that we haven't got to today, again, on your screen, you'll see our website. There is a contact us page. You can send us an email. I would really encourage you to pick up the phone and speak to our team. They are really ready and willing to answer your questions. If it is a little bit hard to express in words, please send us an email. We are generally pretty good at responding. Unless it gets to a little bit of nitty gritty and there's a lot of detail, we might take it a little bit longer, but we are ready to answer those specific questions to your organisation. So I'm going to wrap it up there. If we got no last minute questions, I just wanted to thank you for your time for today. I know we're virtually going to finish right on the dot. Jeanette, come to us and talk to us about your scenario. We'll talk to you a bit later, and same with you, Maria. And if anyone else wants to do so as well, reach out. Thank you very much for all your questions. Thanks for your time today. I'm going to wrap it up now and bid you farewell and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.